Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vayati System. I'm Pallavi, Principal Associate, your host for today's session. Here we are with the fifth episode of Imaginal Talk series on learning and skills development. Before we start the session, I would like to inform you all that we have posted a link in the chat box and would like to hear your feedback at the end of the session. And to initiate the conversation, we have wonderful delegates here with us. Dr. Mona Shah, our founder and director, also an author of the amazing book, Millennial Poised to Lead, a best-selling book on Amazon. And now our guest for the evening. We have dynamic personality on our show today, Ms. Reshmi Shankar, General Manager and Head Facility Management, Group India and Bangladesh, Wipro Limited. I'm sure this evening will be very interesting. So without further ado, let's proceed to listen to the interesting conversation. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Pallavi. A hearty welcome to all those who have joined our fifth live episode of this year. And of course, Reshmi, so happy to have you. Let me first introduce you to the idea behind the series. Imaginal is conceived to offer very personal perspectives about the role learning has played in the lives of our guests. As an academic, I see firsthand the whole idea of learning is undergoing a radical change. There is so much that is thought, spoken, written, experienced, questioned, and planned in policies that it has left the whole world in a conundrum about its relevance or utility. This talk series is dedicated to deconstructing and understanding this very change. Many ask me about why we've named the talk Imaginal. What is Imaginal? Well, Imaginal is the last stage after which the caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. We also know it as the pupa stage. The entire metamorphosis of the butterfly is an almost magical process, rarely found elsewhere in the world of living species. For one, the different forms in the metamorphosis are distinct from one another. So distinct that while in a particular stage, it would be difficult to imagine how the next form would appear for those who see it from the outside. And do you know, this stage-wise development is completely lost on the butterfly too. It does not remember how it looked when it was a caterpillar, and neither does the caterpillar know how it would look in future when it becomes a butterfly. Miraculous, isn't it? So, in all my 3 decades and more as a professor and a strong proponent of all things educational, I frequently came across the lines being repeated from learners, such as, we never really learn anything while in school. It's only when we experience the hard knock of reality that we really learn. Much like the caterpillar, which has no clue what it will become in the future. Most of us go through learning not knowing exactly how it had been designed to help us grow into useful and beautiful individuals in society. Interestingly, though, this view on learning held by multitudes has always been in contradiction to another reality. The reality being that the desire to enroll in good colleges and acquire degrees is equally appealing. In some cultures, in fact, the parents are ready to sacrifice their present for the future of their wards. I recently came across the case of Asha Kandara from Jodhpur in Rajasthan, who used to sweep the streets, but recently cleared her Rajasthan Administrative Service exams and will soon get her post of deputy collector. There is also a story of Annie Siva from Kerala who sold lemonade and ice on the streets but qualified in the police probationary exams and is now a police officer. There are countless such cases of leaders who have been supported to invest in their ambitions. On the other hand, there are billionaires like Oprah Winfrey with practically no education beyond high school, born to a teenaged mother, growing up without electricity or water. And of course, there's Mark Zuckerberg, who dropped out of Harvard to launch Facebook. So, at another level, we are all are aware that there is no better comparative advantage than that of highly skilled human resource for any country to do well at the global scale. Why educate oneself if it lacks clarity, or is either forgotten, or is seen as irrelevant at a later date? Why does formal education is seen as, why does formal education continue to command more premium? Instead, can continuous competency and skilling be the way forward instead of only relying on academic degrees? All these questions are what my guest will help us answer. Why these contradictions? So, we present to you a number of guests from diverse backgrounds who will express their ideas on learning with anecdotes from their own personal journeys. They will share how learning helped, or for that matter, did not help in their own growth and development. We also urge you to post your reactions and comments and engage with our guest for this evening. Ms. Reshmi Shankar, General Manager and Head, the Facilities Management Group, India and Bangladesh of Wipro Limited. Thank you, Reshmi, for joining us today and agreeing to share your own experiences on this show.
Thank you so much, Mona. It's a pleasure to be here. In fact, it's very excited ever since I saw your book. So now I've been promised a signed copy. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And, so it's really happy to be here, and sharing my thoughts. And I'm hoping I can do justice to at least half of what you said, as expected.
We have no doubt about that. So let me
Thank
quickly share Reshmi's work and her past credentials, which of course are not to be, everybody knows Reshmi. In fact, today we have to share with you, Reshmi, that the number of registrations has been a record. So thank you so much. And that has a lot to say about we in facilities management and corporate real estate and all the good work that we are doing in this field. So, by the way, I have to tell my guests that when the poster was made, there was no Bangladesh added to India, and we are now just 2 days ago I got to see this news on LinkedIn. So, more power to you, and it's really wonderful to have you. So, Reshmi is a seasoned facilities management professional who brings in 22 years of in-depth knowledge and skills in areas of workplace strategies, human experience, change and culture management, integrated facilities management, hospitality, sourcing and procurement, BCP, emergency and disaster preparedness, and project management. She currently heads the facilities management and central materials function at Wipro Limited and manages the group's assets and infrastructure portfolio spread across India and, as I said, now Bangladesh too. So let me begin with my first question to you, Reshmi. Could you describe a key learning from your childhood school days that has stayed with you? And this need not be from just school. It can be also school and an informal situation with your elders or teachers or relatives who have instilled something unique in you.
Sure. Thank you. I think it's a good question because I keep thinking about school and I actually have very blurry memories of it. So I have in pockets. But what has helped is having a WhatsApp group with all my classmates, and they keep jogging my memory once in a while. And honestly, I think they think I'm a disaster because I don't remember half of it. But what I remember for sure is so I studied in a KV. I'm very what do you call a typical Malayali girl, grew up, born and brought up in Kerala. So until I, including college actually. So when I got selected for Rolls-Royce and I went out, that's the first time I actually stepped out of Kerala in that sense. So
Right.
the school was a Kendriya Vidyalaya, so I'm a KV product, as a lot of us, like to call ourselves. Interestingly, though, my dad was working for a company called Hindustan Paper Corporation. So
Yeah.
it then later got changed to Newsprint Limited, and so it's not doing too well today. But those days, it was a thriving community, and it was a beautiful amalgamation of all kinds of culture, because we had people from all parts of India. So it was a really like a, you got exposed to all kinds of cultures, languages, everything early on. But the sad part of that was that people who were there would all speak Malayalam very fluently. So there was no difference between my classmate Sunita Pandey would speak Malayalam better than me. So it was like that. So the fun part was that, so I my earliest memory of school is I wanted to learn languages, so it's something that I kind of like. So I, of course, wanted to pick up on Hindi and English and really kind of master the two languages.
Right.
And I already knew how to read and write Malayalam, speak very well. So I used to read Malayalam literature, so I was pretty comfortable through my school. To learn Hindi and English in the same manner, I would struggle, because a lot of conversations, apart from really like study material, was all in the vernacular. So I would seek out people to, kind of engage with me to learn it, learn to speak these languages, because when you actually use it, that's when you really know whether it's right or wrong. So, I always remember that part of my schooling more than the in classroom sort of session. So when you asked about learning, and I was thinking it's a little unconventional learning that I had, but it was something that's always stayed with me. But apart from that, I think the school per se, the teachers were amazing. They were very helpful. It's only probably the lack of us going and taking initiative that was stopping. Because when I
Actually, this, if I may intervene, this was what you said is something so important, because language is the window to the world. So, by
Absolutely.
knowing, by learning and taking that effort to learn English and Hindi, you were actually opening yourself to a whole new culture. And that, I
Absolutely.
think, makes a lot of difference. I think that's a fantastic point. And many times I used to find this, that the technical graduates are not very particular about mastering a language. They feel that the maths, physics, and chemistry is what they should actually be looking at, and not so much the language. So that's an interesting point. And
I think
if,
it
with
comes
your permission,
from
I can.
being, sorry, it comes from being people focused. I feel probably I was having
Yes,
that at that time without
yes,
knowing.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
No, if you permit me, I can go to the next question, which is
Sure.
around the curriculum. I think as I went through your CV, you have a hospitality background. And so obviously, what you're doing now, like procurement, infrastructure management, project management, all this is a way different from what we learn in the curriculum of a hospitality management course. So, can you just throw light on what are those things you have carried along with you from that learning, and what are the things you've had to leave behind in that learning?
Sure. So, while you're right in saying that hospitality, by just the word, would signify something very different from what I'm doing today. But at the end of the day, what am I doing? I am hosting my colleagues in my facilities, giving them the right experience, and ensuring that they are the best, they're the most productive that they can be in that given, sort of setup. So how far is it different from hospitality in that sense?
Right.
So when you look at hospitality as a profession, there are elements of all this, because you need to ensure that the hotels are maintained very well,
True.
are kept up, and are up to date in terms of look and feel, decor, whatever it might be, hygiene, safety. Anything you talk about, it's absolutely applicable in what I'm doing today. So,
Right.
and above all, the entire aspect of customer service and customer orientation. So I think it sort of is a stepping stone, and there's a lot of things that you can adapt to what I'm doing. So, if I can go back for a minute, my dad and mom, of course, wanted me, typical options: doctor, engineer, or at least a government job, if nothing else. And I was very clear that no way am I going to get into that sort of a thing. I just was not inclined to for some reason. So when I said hotel management, there was of course a lot of sort of resistance, but ultimately they gave in, and then I have found that I'm able to use a lot of what I learned there even today. And
Yes.
it also is a great leveler. It prepares you for doing anything, makes you very adaptable to things that come up your way. So in that sense, I think I've been able to use what I learned, continue to use and learn from that.
That's right. In fact, we always learn in production management. The Japanese gave the concept of the internal customer. So basically, the each one of us must look at our colleague or the function in the department or anywhere as the internal customer and do well for ourselves. So that's exactly what
True.
you're doing for your colleagues within the
True.
whole Wipro setup. So what do you think you have had to leave behind then, from what you learned?
Uh, I don't think you really leave behind things, because at least in my case, I feel it lies dormant in you.
Right.
So it's there somewhere in the sort of in the back of your mind, and it kind of comes out, when you really need it. It sort of you draw upon it as you require. So, for
Hmm.
example, in one of the roles I played, and I've changed my role a couple of times in the past, before I reached where I am today, I have shifted from hospitality to, of course, FM, which was a big pivot, but it allowed me to use what I already knew. But it was still something I had to start from, ground zero in that sense. Then I played a role which was around facilities. Rather, it was called administration those days. Facilities,
Right. Yes.
FM, workplace, all of that evolved and came to where we are today. So, and then I pivoted into something called portfolio management. Actually, I went out of FM for about 3-4 years and ended up with something called portfolio management, which has nothing to do with what I thought was my core skills and
Right.
competencies at that point. And but it also told me what I didn't like. I didn't like being tied to a laptop, looking at Excel sheets, looking at numbers, etc.,
Right.
etc. That's while it's a integral part of what you do, that's not the only thing. So that wasn't something. So when I look back today, I had to pick up things along the way for every shift that I made and learn on
Right.
the job and then sort of kind of build on it. So today when you ask me if I require to, I know some of the Excel skills I learned while I was there is still there
Right.
with me, but I don't use
Right.
it actively today.
Right.
So
Right.
so not maybe completely drop, it would be there, because I think a skill that is learned probably remains with you
Right.
through life.
Yes. 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 It's like a muscle memory. It keeps coming back. Yeah, that's
True.
true. Uh, yeah, that's really interesting. That's really good. A very different take from what I would have thought. That it lies dormant inside you. That's so important. Yes. So, in your professional journey now, over 22 years, I'm sure your span of management has grown. So, what are those competencies that you've had to actually, maybe some of them you've perhaps may have dropped, but maybe not, as you say, they may have lain dormant. But which are those you actually acquired for this role? Can you just throw some light on that, please?
Sure. So I think, um, like I said, a lot of things that I feel that was there from beginning. That was around the people management part of it, or dealing with your whether it's your team or people around you with respect, empathy, compassion. All of that is always there, but the practical skills that is required to really do your job well was something I really had to sort of pick up, right? When what that means is there is no way around not knowing let's say space management or real estate management, or
Right.
some of those technical things that you really need to know. Maybe I don't need to know how to run a DG, but I need to understand what are mandatory, what is required to ensure that it's
Correct.
running. So some of those things I think has been things that I have to learn, and a lot of it honestly has been on the job learning for me.
Right.
So
Right.
that's always here. I'm not a great believer in certification courses, I must say that. So
Right.
I really feel that you have to pick, and there are technical trainings that you absolutely need to to probably go and learn from the experts, but a lot of other things you can learn and hone as you go forward by really using and having mentors on the job who can really help and sort of keep you going.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the on the job should never, definitely in these kind of roles, I think they matter a lot, because you have to actually, the kind of work you're doing is so different. I mean, as you said, right from a technical, whether the facility is working, the electromechanical equipment is working or not, to seeing whether the ergonomics of the chairs and furniture is in
Absolutely.
everything. I mean, you just have to, so you know, you must know human psychology, you should know science, and you should know the technical. That's a hell of a span to know, actually. So
And you will
wonderful.
not know, Mona. You will never know everything, So
Yes,
it's
yeah,
very important to also have a team that sort of, I absolutely believe in this, that sort of compensates for what you lack, So I always feel that if you don't have that particular skill set or a particular competency, maybe it's something you can develop over time, but certain things you may never be able to acquire. So you can
right,
never become an electrical engineer or
correct.
a mechanical
A
engineer
specialist,
overnight.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
specialist. So you need SME support. You need to have that to hone and kind of get a well-rounded team in place so that you deliver the best to your customers, so to
right.
speak.
So then, taking that ahead, what do you really require to ensure that the team is with you, and they are you take them along? So any particular thing that enables you to make that team member, because generally we read everywhere that the technical person finds it very difficult to accept someone who's a non-technical person. So they generally have this, they loved, I know, because my husband is an engineer, and it's always like, you don't speak my language, kind of. So we have this very healthy dialogue all the time, which has lasted 33 years now, so, and still going strong. So that's why I'm asking you,
Okay.
how do you get to that, handling
No,
this, because as you said, those specialists have to be around and accepting also.
yeah, I think it comes with when you respect the person for what he or she brings to the table, right? And when you do not undermine their ability or their strengths,
Right.
and you see them
Yes.
as the professional that they are, half your battle is won.
Yes.
Because obviously I cannot, if I have my project and engineering head sitting with me, I would talk from logical, practical, common sensical approach and my experience of having dealt with something that's
True.
I've experienced over the last
True.
whatever
True.
time that I've been in the industry.
Yes.
So they would come with design
Yes.
specifics, and the nuts and bolts of what that system is all about. So when you're able to convey, and again language becomes very important, and it's not just language in semantics, that I'm talking. It's about understanding the other person and where they
Right.
come from, because a lot of times what happens, and this is something that's of a battle all the time, right? I mean, you would have financial pressure, so you would be asked to bring down some cost in something, or something you need to spend very critically on, and then the SME would always say that if you don't do this, you're going to have trouble, let's say
Yes.
2 years, 3 years
That's
down the
right.
line.
Yes. Yes.
So you need to be able to judge, whether
Right.
you are an SME or not, from and that comes with trust, so it
True.
comes with
True.
building relationships. It comes
True.
with them having trust in you, that you've got
That's
the
right.
best interest for everybody, and
Yes.
it's not going to happen overnight. I have been fortunate enough to have built teams. I've inherited teams and worked with them, and I would like to, or love to think that we were able to deliver a absolute turnaround of performance with the same
Right.
team, give or take a
Right.
few. So
Right.
it's that ability lies in every team. It's about how we work with them, or rather we work with each other, and then sort of bring
True.
that out. So
True.
it's not a one person sort of a show. But I think what I always feel is that if I am able to sort of communicate the collective feeling better by articulating it the right way. Then our case is one, because you have the expertise there, you have the ability to communicate, then it's the best sort of marriage there, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely. This is very wonderful and very important for everybody who's in the technical and the non-technical domain, because it takes all to tango actually, not just to
absolutely.
it's really something that is, this was very important. And now I come to a very I ask you a question which is directly related to the job roles that you are in, like related to facilities management. We would love to know how it's changed over the decades. How office, for instance, office bound employee movement to a distributed virtual team, flexi hours, work from home, and so many other things now that you all suddenly, I believe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, your scope of work has increased. You now have to think of the families of
Yeah.
your employees who are actually in their milieu and their domain. Earlier, it was more the emperor bringing himself or herself to office, but now you are right there in the middle of it. So, some light
Absolutely.
on that. And coming out of that is what kind of skills would be needed in managing facilities at the corporate level, and especially in the times of crisis. So, two parts to this question.
Okay, you will have to remind me the second question by the time I finish
Yes,
answering the first one. So,
we have about 3 or 4 minutes for both of them. So take your time.
no problem. So, you're absolutely right. I remember when I started my career, moving from hospitality into FM, I had no idea what I was doing. So, it was a very small team of about 300 employees that, of the entire organization that I was supporting in administration as my role. There was zero technology. There
Right.
was phones, of course, was a big blessing by the time. At least there were, in fact, in hospitality I was using pagers, and then
Oh,
the
yes,
first few couple of years I remember using pagers, and then we would have to call back whoever is paging you. So it was a very interesting time. And then we came to mobile phones, right? And
right.
times simplified, and then Blackberries, the messenger,
Yes,
all of that sort of
yes,
kind
yes.
of came in and eased communication out. But I think the biggest change would be technology. I would think, when I look at it, right, how that has touched, or rather, I would say it's made an FM's role, life, so simplified today. Because I remember managing transportation in those days, and when it's billing, they would bring these bunch of invoices, trip sheets, and you'll have to literally sit and
True,
sift through that to
true.
come out with the bill, right? And
Yes,
from there to managing everything in an ad hoc manner, today everything is at the tip of your
yes,
on your fingertips, right? You sit at home, you book your parking, you book your seat, you come into work. If there are offices that actually allow you to offer coffee for meetings. It just comes to you at the right time. So I think that sense of ownership and choice, that's transferred to the employee, rather than the FM. It's not what the FM can do when they can do. It's about what the employee or the user wants when they want.
right,
So
right.
whether it is night shift, whether it's, and today we have so much of touchless offices that we are talking about, right?
Yes,
Whether you're talking
yes,
the workplaces, especially in a post-pandemic world, everything is going to be that way. And while how do you stay in touch? So technology is going to be what is important. So that brings me to the second question. Knowledge of technology and how it impacts our life is very, very key. Our ability to really look at a problem statement, to spot the problem, and to listen to people, and to sort of understand that there is a problem there is a genuine problem there which needs addressing. And because we may think that we've given the best solution to people, whatever it might be. But if people are not happy, your colleagues are not happy, your employee groups are not happy, then it is going to fail, however great a solution it is. And so our ability to find out, understand the other side, keeping an open mind, these are key skills that I think you will, rather competencies that you will need to develop on as you move up the ladder. Because you would always have the technically skilled people, your SMEs always available for you to do the kind of heavy lifting. But understanding, talking, convincing, all of that is what would be required more and more. So ability to be a good storyteller, both
Right.
sides. When you have a seat at the table today, which thanks to a lot of changes over the time, today you actually have the ability to be presenting to to the FM. As an FM, I'm saying, from earlier,
Right.
somebody would collect information from you and go back to leadership and
Right.
communicate. But today you have a table, a seat at the table right there. So how do you use it? And then, so I think all of that has shifted significantly from over the last 15, 20 years that I have seen. I can sort of correlate it because, when I started my journey and, how I used to do certain things to today, how I see my own, the same role that I used to play being done by somebody else, but with the ease and ability to manage with all the tools that are available today. I think that's a significant shift right there.
Very, very interesting. Yes. Yeah, I mean, this technology has actually, you must be having a few of your own stories to tell in terms of how technology has actually created a bit of unlearning and relearning for you all in the group, not just you, but everyone in the group. And
I think Mona, if I may interrupt, sorry, the
yes,
biggest
please,
thing
please.
is every time I see, you automate something, and there is always this itch that I see with people to unautomate it for some reason. So I think that's a thing that as FM professionals we need to outgrow. We really need to get rid of that thing, to that urge to sort of whatever progress you make, you put in money, there's a lot of capital being invested, and then
Right.
over time you see typically that things that you automated with great pain and effort are, just become manual over time. So if
Right.
there is something that I really, that's a pet peeve
Yeah.
of mine, over time, that we lose that, whatever, and then the money is sunk, it's gone, effort is
Right.
gone, and you have to restart.
Yes.
So
No, this is an extremely important. I mean, I never thought of it like that because I'm rather tech shy, and I'm learning all this in the last 1 year or so. I think I have grown a lot in terms of tech because I never needed to use so much tech earlier. So I think like how everybody has changed around the world, so have I. And now I kind of understand what potential it had. It just kind of burst onto the scene, and everybody had to adapt. If only we would have done that earlier, we would not have had so many cars on the road and so much pollution.
I
Perhaps,
agree.
yeah, we could have rethought our systems much earlier. Rather than
Absolutely.
making work congregational, we could have actually distributed some of the industries at least, out. So yeah, but we learned. But anything you can say about crises? How would an FM manage it? And now you have so much experience that you can share with us. So a little cameo of how to manage in a crisis.
You know, I think it comes with your ability or how resilient you are at the end of the day, right? I mean, adaptability, as for me personally, it's always been there, and then, you kind of groom yourself to the new, whatever is happening around you, and then you manage. But I think in today's world, or rather in the last one plus year that we have seen, it's resilience that is the most important, and that's true for any crisis, right? I mean, how people bounce back after the Chennai floods, or for example the Mumbai, every time you have this deluge of during the rainy season, and then how people just come back. And I think that resilience is something we, especially in FM, you absolutely need, because yes, if something is not working, you need to keep a cool and calm head, and get around to getting it done, and then a lot of ability to, a big thick skin you need to survive
Right.
in this, because
Correct.
it's not
Correct.
easy. So
Yes.
so crisis sort of brings out the worst in people, right,
Correct.
and the
That's
best in
true.
people. So
Right.
a lot of times you have to go through the worst before you get to the best. So
Correct.
so that's where I said the thick skin matters, because you need to
Yeah.
really wade through the that period to get to the good part. So you spoke of the employees and families, right? And some of the work that we did in the last year, it was a brutal time, right, for a lot of us. And when you really look at it, we never had in our job descriptions fetching oxygen cylinders or sourcing a hospital bed
Yes.
or
Yes.
any of those, right? But
True.
over the last when lockdown was initially announced to kind of anticipating that, planning it, so forward thinking outlook is absolutely key, I feel. Because you never know. I remember as early as March, Feb, we were still thinking about H1N1 in Bangalore. Honestly, there was an
Right.
outbreak and we were still thinking about that. And then
Right.
suddenly it was COVID. And then, we had to think about a potential lockdown, which we had never seen in our life. So, forward thinking, and how do you kind of then you work with your partners to ensure that your facilities do not come under, an outage, or, you don't kind of suffer. So forward thinking in my mind is equally important to adaptability and resilience,
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
so that's
That's so
that's a few of,
important. Yes.
yeah.
That's a new, very new facet that you brought here, because everybody is so used to being in the here and now, and then just thinking about the annual maintenance contracts and life of asset and all that. But the life of asset is generally very far away, so one is only actually thinking about AMCs. No, so this must have been a completely
Yeah.
new thing never in the books, as you said.
Yeah, it is not.
Fantastic.
And I think it's time, or rather, it's already happening. And, we are putting, facilities management puts the buildings first. Like you rightly
Yes.
said, assets come first. But today it is moving to workplace. And, there's a lot of experience elements that is being talked about.
Right.
So I think it
Right.
is that change is already happening. It's about, we are in different sort of speeds of adapting to that, I would say, So but we're on the right
Yeah.
track for sure.
Right. Right. In fact, one other question that comes out of this is, of course, while you're saying that human experience is becoming more important, then where does it lead? Where does finance and technology come in, and what kind of competencies are important for that? And if you have to play a senior corporate facility management roles or real estate management roles, will these finance and technology serve as prerequisites, or your take on it, kind of, if you can just tell us a bit?
Absolutely. I think at any level, this is an important aspect, because you can't survive without technology skills today. Because your life is so tied in with this, and look at your the generations that are working today. I mean, we have, as we speak, 4 generations at work, just in Wipro that I know. So when you have the newer generations that are, some of them are absolutely you know. What's the word? What's the word? Digital native, right? That
Digital
they,
natives.
yeah.
Digital
So they
natives.
are born with, instead of a silver
Yes.
spoon, they are born
Yes.
with a,
Very
mobile
true.
phone in their hand today. So they know the intricacies of it. Yesterday, I had to do an Insta live. So
Wow.
the day before in the night, I was getting a crash course from my 15-year-old. So he is so much more savvy around it. So now you have workforces that are in that generations of people who are so used to technology, and if you don't understand that, then you can't keep up.
True.
So it's absolutely a skill that you have to get, at
Right.
least, even if you do not know coding. I wouldn't go to that extent, but you need to understand the basics of this, and you need to know, for example, as we were fighting the pandemic, and we were opening up, we needed to quickly develop solutions to bring people back to campuses. So, we worked with the technology team. So there is a need, and we identified the need. So, we kind of worked with the developers to actually find a solution which would allow people, because there were mandates from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to actually declare some of these things. Contact tracing, you can't just do it
Correct.
without help
Yes.
of technology. Now, as an FM, if you do not understand some of this, and you cannot, you need to be also able to map the user experience with technology. So that's where it
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of comes in together. So if you don't understand technology, then you go and you're not able to make your case. You're not able to give them a
Correct.
use case that they can
Yes.
work with and develop.
Yes.
So that's where it is very important. Finance, to my mind, is an important thing. If not, at least the understanding of how it would impact the bottom line
Right.
or the top line, or when you're especially in a public limited company, how does it impact quarter to quarter for your shareholders. So you need to have a high level understanding, and that can also be cultivated, and you can leverage your the finance teams help to really kind of understand some of that. Where you don't understand, there is no harm in asking and learning, right? So
True.
I would think it's absolutely key. I would never say it's not important. It is important, because as you go up, your fights are more around these rather
True.
than the day-to-day,
Yes, it's always resources and finance
Yes,
being the most important. Yes.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So now I'm veering towards the end of the session. I'm hoping that there are some questions that are going to come our way. And otherwise, the conversation can go on and on. And I just don't think it should stop at 1 hour, I feel. But yes, if we look at all the problems that the world is facing, and there are so many. I mean, they are such large global problems like natural environmental risks or youth skill development, digitalization, fair access to development. In fact, nowadays buildings are also blamed for so much of the carbon and greenhouse gases that are being, sent out
Right.
into the atmosphere. So, considering all this, what competencies does our generation, as well as the senior generations and the newer generations, need to actually cultivate? Now, this is not really related so much from FM, but you are handling this and you're seeing so many thousands in Wipro, and you're seeing what is important for them and what should be important or ought to be important for them to acquire going forward. So, to handle these large and macro problems, what do you think should be some of the competencies we should be inculcating? If you could throw light on that, please.
Sure. I think you've just stated the entire world's problems right there. But, I think the biggest problem, I mean, I'm not sort of, trivializing the problems. I think the
Right,
biggest problem that we have today is that people are not involved. We all
right,
know, we have
right,
your SDG, what is what is it that we require, what is required to be done is very clear. But
true,
a lot of people, I think, get stuck at what's in it for me. The
right,
ability to
right,
see the bigger picture. We
correct,
are we are trying to, let's say, get a metro done,
right,
metro rail done, right?
right,
So now the
right,
question comes about, what about the trees on the way? So
right,
you have to sacrifice something for
correct.
the
Yes,
longer term good. So the ability to see, more than what's in it for me, to what's in it for us as a
correct,
community, and
correct,
beyond that to the world. I think that's one key thing. Apart from that, of course, sustainability remains a prime focus area for us, especially coming from what I manage. I think that's an area that's got a lot of potential for improvement, and
right,
and I think a sustained focus is very, very important, not just um, empty words, but
yes,
actual
yes,
real action on ground.
yes,
And the third thing, again, sort of tied into what I do, is skill development. and
correct,
and I think that's an area I feel whatever we do is going to be less, because as we have more and more generations, employable people coming in, they're actually not employable because of lack of certain skills. So how do you get them the right skill sets, and bring in? Because if you just look at the late millennials and gen Z's and alphas or whatever that are going to enter, they are coming in with a very different perspective. So
yes,
so making them understand what's important, making them care. I mean, you have people who care, and there are a lot of spokespeople for some of these things, but I think the larger generations or larger populations do not really understand the impact of some of these things. So I think more and
right,
more awareness is absolutely important, and then pick up one cause that's important to you, and kind of work around that, so that you can give back, you can make a difference from your perspective. So
yes,
that's I sometimes I feel that we all talk a lot but don't do enough,
true, true,
and
very true.
so
Yeah,
while
it
we
happens.
accept
Yes,
it happens. So and so that's where I am, something that I've been really thinking about in the last couple of months, or actually from last year, has been how do you really make that? So, probably taking part in some of these sessions, mentoring people real time, these are our ways of giving back.
Yes.
But I think there is a lot of scope in, picking up certain things and then kind of working towards
Yes.
those
Yes.
specific goals.
That is so true. In fact, I'm with all humility, I must admit that in the book I have actually, put a lot of focus on these very issues, because what we are looking at from the perspective of senior generations is quite different from the way the younger generations view the world. And there's a big fault line over there in many ways, because
Absolutely.
the younger generations want to have a cleaner world, a better world, and somehow we've not been able to look at it from their
Yeah.
perspectives, and so many other things also, as you said. So definitely, I think we all, as senior generations, that book also speaks about how we should be now providing the the pivots to go forward and make this uh, world a better place for all to live in. So
Absolutely.
because there's something called millennial angst, as they say. It keeps
Yeah.
coming out from time to time. So with that, I would of course, I have a question which is almost at the end of this session now, because we have to open it for the audience and their questions also. So which key attitudes and skills should millennials and Gen Z need going forward, and why? So it is actually coming out of what you mentioned, and the question was already there in my mind to ask you, because Wipro being Wipro, you are dealing with so many young people and thousands of them. So we would actually, it would help us to get that ringside view of things. So what are those skills and competencies you feel they'll need in the future?
I wouldn't, I don't think I have the entire answer for that. But in my mind, the gap that I see for sure is that this generation is coming with a lot of individualism. They all have things that they strongly believe in, and they are all living in the fast moving world. So
Yes.
everything has to happen immediately for them. So
Right.
patience, waiting for something, working hard at something, that's not something I have I don't think, I mean, I forgive me if I'm jumping to conclusions, but I feel that that's a skill or a
Right.
competency that they absolutely or to a large extent lack. So what
Okay.
happens with that is people who are in their later parts of their career, spend 20, 30 years and feel they know everything, and they have toiled and they've kind of come up the hard way. There is going to be a clash of
Yes.
uh,
Yes. Yes.
those
Yes.
the kind of
I know.
yeah, so that clash is going to be inevitable, especially when you bring these two parties into a team or into a project, or they have to work together, right? So
Right.
I think both parties will need help in this, because for people like us, who've been in the industry for some time, it would be about patience to actually work with the newer generations and to handhold them through some of these things, because they are not really used to some of the structure and
That's right. Yes.
working
Yes.
hard and waiting for the that sabar ka
Yes.
phal meetha hota hai does not apply
I
to them.
know.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
You're
I
right.
think that is, I see that so much with my son while he's 15. A lot of things is like, why? So he speaks
Why?
his mind. He's
Yeah.
absolutely frank. Whereas I am, at least in the work setting, I'm, a little more diplomatic. I know how
Correct.
to kind of say what needs to be said without really stepping on too many toes. So,
Right. Right.
so
Right.
that ability, I think, to sort of get into that corporate setup, which is a little bit
Right.
more rigid. There is a culture
Yes.
that you will need to still fit
Yes.
into.
I
I
agree.
think
Yeah.
so. It's something that I feel would be required.
Yes. And they are far from that. Actually, they feel stifled in that. But
Oh
yes,
yes,
there's a point in what you say. So thank you, Reshmi, for your candid responses. From this talk, I can summarize a few of the skills that have enabled your personal and professional growth. So quickly, if I were to look at them, you have first spoken of your early childhood where language and your that adventurous nature of yours to learn two new languages which helped you in the future, something very important. Then
I
people
I
manage.
also learned I also learned Tamil. I didn't mention that of my own with
Oh,
the learn Tamil in 30 days book. No
oh
less. So it works.
wow, fabulous!
So
Oh my goodness, quite
yeah,
a linguist you are, because
yeah.
languages actually. I heard very recently that if you have to keep your mind from working through and not get Alzheimer's, it seems you should learn a language. So, oh,
Okay.
this is something
I,
very,
I'm I
because
I'm sure
I
it
just
keeps your brain.
recently read
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
and
Sorry, I
of course,
interrupted you.
many other skills that you have spoken about. I thought was very important was that skills are learned, and they are always remembered. They kind of lie dormant, but they can be brought back when needed. You learned about space management and compliances and more technical stuff, which is on the job as your your work span and your they call it job expanded, so to say. So you think that you for those who are where you need your technical help, you need to have a great team to assist you, and so developing a good team is a very important skill to have. Knowledge of tech is important also, and the ability to spot a problem early on, and to listen to things with an open mind. And also, when you are in the corporate real estate, when you have a seat at the table, you should become a very good storyteller. How true. That is so important. And of course, I think I agree with you. Resilience is what is the most important thing. It's not just important for any organization, but individuals that make up the organization. And I think your interpretation of a thick skin was basically to remain calm, because people are agitated. They have their own reasons when there is a crisis. But in a crisis, it's important to remain calm and find solutions. That is how I see you. I interpreted your thick skin not as not being responsive, but to remain calm till the crisis is tided over. And then, of course, forward thinking, competence, and working with partners. Coding and technology is extremely important now, with so many buildings becoming intelligent buildings. And of course, an understanding of finance, at least that much that you are able to see the bigger picture. And towards the end, I think I asked you about macro level problems, and you said that, yeah, people need to be involved in this because it's not just one person who can handle this problem, but involvement of people is important. They should understand the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations has, told. I mean, we are all signatories to that. And of course, going forward, skill development of people is of the youth is important. And I think you meant regardless, sorry, regardless of generation. I mean, we have to reskill. Finally, of course, you said millennials and Generation Z tend to have a lot of individualism. So they should have more patience and they should work hard. So thank you so much. I think I should have Pallavi over to you. I have a bit of a problem. I think I need to just go off the
Sure.
camera a little bit. Thank you so much, Reshmi.
Thank you, Mona.
Thank you, ma'am. That was an amazing conversation. So, considering the time constraint, we will be able to take up only few questions. I think we have only 5 minutes to go.
Right. Sure.
So, yeah. So, the first question is from Nidhi. She wants to ask Miss Reshmi, the one skill that make a person one of the best in FM, and how has pandemic affected the whole operation of FM?
So I don't think there is one skill. I think it's a combination of skills that I sort of touched upon. But if you were to ask me, I think it's about uh, seeing people as people, and kind of giving them that. And I spoke of respect earlier on, so when you have empathy and when you work with compassion, and I think that sort of uh, it works in any role that you are in, unless of course you're only working with machines. But when you are working in FM, is typically to a large extent is to do with people. And that's, so I think that's probably one of the key skills that you need to hone and enhance, because pandemic, while the pandemic was raging, that's one of the things that I think has really been required, and has helped us manage the entire show, right? Because when the pandemic was raging, there were things that it was being, it was affecting people, and it was not one part that was affected, right? It was not that, okay, in then one particular place there is somebody who's impacted. It was our own teams that were getting impacted. It was, our partners that were getting impacted. So there were families impacted. So every family had, somebody or the other who was affected. So I think that was something. So that's why I say people. We need to be able to see people as people, not just our internal customers, but also our own teams, our own partners, and everybody. So it's the whole country or the whole world that was impacted. So that's one key skill. And FM, I think it's going to be a very interesting time for us overall, because as we go forward, it's already been a year of work from home. FM was never seen as a area that could effectively work from home, but we have done that. We have managed it in a blended model where we found ways to continue to keep the backbone going as things were sort of heating up, and also kept the lights on in that sense. There were companies that continue to operate, right? Wipro, for one, always had 2 to 3% people who were working from campuses. So sort of that ability to manage the hybrid, and going forward, that's going to be very, very key. So I think that's where we should be focusing on now.
Okay. The next question is from Ashima. After the pandemic, what steps were taken to create a digital workplace for employees?
Yep. So I think a lot of work was being done into this even before pandemic, but I think pandemic has sort of speeded up that whole thing, because we definitely needed to get folks to, let's say, to self-declare. There were mandates that was there from the government side to actually track, like I earlier mentioned, and to see who has traveled, who has not traveled. So a lot of that work was put into creating tools, which I'm sure a lot of companies have developed internal tools. There are a lot of them available off the shelf that you can pick up and sort of customize for organizational needs. But having a digital workplace in your hand is very, very important, because it allows you to plan, it allows you to predict. Both sides. From an employee side, it allows him or her the ability to sort of plan for their work, in the workplace. And from the FM side, it gives you an ability to forecast and prepare for that footfall that's going to come. And I think in the coming time, this is going to be a key aspect, because you will really need to manage, at least until such time that the whole world is vaccinated, and we learn to live with COVID, in a peaceful way, coexist. This is going to be very, very key. So I think whatever it would be, I spoke of touchless offices, contactless offices. So we have to be figuring out how to stay connected while staying away from each other. So I think digital tools will be the best suited for that.
Very well said. Okay, so with that, we come to an end of today's session. So, before we close the session, please click on the link shared in the chat box to enable us to make Imaginal Talk series even more relevant to you. I've already posted the link, so kindly click. We can just wait for another 1 minute, and I request all the participants or the viewers to fill in the details, please.
So thank you so much, Pallavi and Mona. Wonderful
Yes.
session.
Yes,
And
Reshmi.
I look forward to hearing a lot more of these shows, and of course,
Yes.
a lot more of partnerships like this in the future.
Yes,
Looking
actually,
forward to your
Reshmi, this has been so so nice and warm, and really, you've spoken and shared from your heart. I'm sure all the viewers are going to learn a lot from this, because
I truly hope so.
our buildings are what we should be looking after, and very little attention is paid to this whole vocation. And there are experts like you who have been contributing to this now for some time, and really not. The world hardly, at least in India, doesn't know. I know it's very big abroad, and I think Cornet is doing a lot now, I think, in that direction.
Yeah, there are a
So
lot of
really,
organizations that's there. Cornet, there is
FEMA,
IFMA,
yes,
yeah. So there are a lot of them. So it's for each one of us to look out for what works for us and be a
that's
part
right.
of it, network,
Yes.
learn from each other.
Yes, and the built environment is so important to for our efficiency. Actually, now so many things have changed. Like, the world has changed, and I don't know whether COVID or without COVID. I think we have some good opportunity to actually keep those things that we learned right now. In this 1 year plus, we should
Yeah, I think
actually be able to retain that. And I think you all
COVID
will
gave
have
us
a great role to play in that, Reshmi, to
no,
convince the
no.
world.
I hope so. I think, COVID gave us a great big push, right? I mean, if the joke was that what drove digitization in your company, and the joke in the early part of COVID was that COVID drove it, right? So it was it was kind of funny. So
Yeah.
yeah, great. Thank you, and really wonderful to be here.
Thank you. All those viewers who would like to have a certificate of attendance may please leave their email addresses in the chat box. And for those who have missed the session today, the talk will be available on our official YouTube channel by next week. Please like, follow, and subscribe to Vayati System channel on YouTube and Imaginal blogs on Vayati Systems website. On behalf of Vayati, I thank Ms. Reshmi Shankar for joining us, and thank you viewers for engaging with us through comments and questions. Signing out and looking forward to having you once again in the next episode with yet another distinguished guest. Bye for now. Stay imaginal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.